The divorce papers arrived at 2:11 a.m. I remember the exact time because the house was silent except for the sound of the refrigerator humming. I'd just finished wiping the desert sand off boots I'd never wear again. Old habits die slow. 20 years in Navy-eared explosive ordnance disposal teaches you 3 things. Look, listen, don't rush. Most people think defusing bombs is about bravery. It's not. It's about staying calm when the world wants you to hurry. My name is Ethan Cole, 42 years old, Chief Petty Officer, retired. I served in Kandahar, Busra, Mosul, and a few other places the news forgot to mention. I came home with all my limbs, but not all my nights. 7 weeks out of the Navy, I was learning what peace sounds like. It's not quiet, it's empty. The email's subject line read, "Let's keep this professional." It came from Rachel, my wife of 11 years. CCD was Mark Vell, a name I recognized vaguely from community meetings. He was a realtor, slick hair, shiny watch, practiced handshake. The type who smiles with his teeth, not his eyes. The message was short. "Ethan, I've filed the papers. Please cooperate for both our sakes." This isn't emotional, it's practical. I read it twice. The air didn't move. No sound, no heartbeat, no reaction. Then I closed the laptop. That's the thing about EOD guys. We never cut the red wire first. We wait, we observe, and we make a plan. I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, a place where people still wave when they drive past your porch. My father, Frank, was a plumber. My mother, Susan, taught elementary school. They believed in working until your hands hurt and speaking only when you had something worth saying. Dad used to say, "Still water's deep, son." I didn't understand it back then. Now I live by it. I wasn't the smartest kid, but I could focus. While others talked, I built things: radios, model planes, anything with wiring. Maybe that's what led me to IOD. I joined the Navy the day after high school graduation. No college plans, no big dreams, just the need to go somewhere and prove something. My first deployment was Fallujah 2005. We lost a man named Ortiz on day 3. After that, I learned what silence really sounds like, the kind that hums in your bones. Over the next 20 years, I became good at my job, identifying threats, understanding people under pressure, predicting failure before it happens. You'd think those skills help in marriage. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they ruin it. Rachel came into my life in 2011, in the waiting room of Portsmouth Naval Hospital. I had a shard of metal in my forearm. She worked admin at the front desk. She told me I looked like a man who'd been in a few fires. I told her I just knew how to walk out of them. We laughed. She was warm, ambitious, and always moving. I was quiet, deliberate, and always observing. We made sense, at least in the beginning. We married a year later, bought a modest brick house in Norfolk, near the shipyard. 3 bedrooms, a tired lawn, a garage I turned into my sanctuary. Every corner of that house had something I fixed with my own hand: shelves, wiring, water heater, roof tiles. I thought stability meant love. Maybe that was my mistake. The cracks started small, like hairlines in glass. She stopped waiting up for me after shifts, stopped asking how the day went, started going out more: committee meetings, charity projects, girls' nights. Her phone was always face down on the counter. One evening, while folding laundry, she mentioned a riverfront redevelopment project, said it could raise property values and revitalize the neighborhood. I nodded, not really listening. After 20 years of listening for clicks and wires, your brain filters noise. But when I saw Mark Vell walking down our driveway, a few days later, his shiny shoes on my cracked pavement, it clicked. Rachel said he was just checking the lot for potential zoning inclusion. Her tone was casual, too casual. I said nothing. In my world, silence isn't avoidance, it's reconnaissance. A month later, she asked if I'd ever thought of moving closer to the city. Better opportunities, she said. Cleaner environment. I reminded her we'd spent years making this house ours. Her eyes softened for a second, then hardened again. People change, Ethan, she said. Maybe, but not this fast. Retirement is strange. You go from a schedule dictated by mission codes and protocols to nothing. No alarms, no briefings, no explosions. Just time. Too much time. One Friday evening, I came home from the shipyard, walked into the garage, and saw a cardboard box on my workbench that wasn't mine. Inside, printed maps, appraisal forms, zoning, drafts, and a power of attorney document pre-filled with my information. But the name was spelled wrong: Ethan Cole. There was also a printed email from Rachel to Mark. If we convince him this leaseback is temporary, the district can process the transfer quietly. He's reasonable. He won't fight. My hands didn't shake. They never do. Instead, I took out a pen and started making notes like I would on an IED schematic. Who placed it? What triggers it? Where it leads? That night, I set up my workspace like a command center. Documents on the left, laptop in the middle, notebook and coffee on the right. I filed 3 emails before sunrise to Hannah Ruiz, an old Navy teammate turned real estate attorney, to Greg Talley, a local journalist who'd once written an expose on municipal fraud, to the County Land Records Office, requesting all filings related to our address. At 7:12 a.m., Rachel texted, "We should talk tonight." I have meetings all day. I looked at the phone and whispered, yeah, I bet you do. EOD work is 80% prep, 20% execution. Marriage isn't much different when it starts to collapse. Step 1. Gather info. Hannah confirmed there was a special redevelopment district operating along the Elizabeth River. They were purchasing homes under voluntary redevelopment, but the fine print turned ownership over to a private trust run by guest who Mark Value. You signed that lease back, Hannah said. You'll still live there, but you won't own it anymore. They'll rent it back to you until it's bulldozed. She paused. You know how to disarm things quietly. Ethan, use that. Step 2. Follow the money. Greg sent over campaign records, land transactions, donation trails, 3 shell LLCs, 1 address, 1 notary. It wasn't a conspiracy. It was bureaucracy dressed as greed, he added. They've done this in 2 other neighborhoods. You could blow it wide open. I told him, I don't want fame. I want my house. Step 3. Secure evidence. 2 days later, the county clerk emailed me copies of filed documents with my name, both forged, both notarized by the same person, both dated when I was overseas last year. That's not a coincidence. That's timing, someone waiting for the right moment to strike. I scanned every page, logged the metadata, and printed 2 sets. 1 for me, 1 for Hannah. Step 4. Observation. I stopped confronting Rachel. Started watching patterns. Her late nights turned into weekends away. Conferences became property tours. Her tone changed, less warmth, more rehearsed sympathy. People tell you to trust your gut. I don't. I trust evidence. Step 5. Surveillance. I checked the cloud footage from our home cameras. On a Thursday afternoon, 2:14 p.m., Mark's SUV pulled into the driveway. Rachel opened the door for him. They spent 20 minutes in the living room, 5 in the office, 3 in the garage. At 2:38 the camera caught him saying, "Don't worry, he's Navy, they sign anything if it looks official." That line was enough to detonate a lifetime. I downloaded the file to a USB, labeled it evidence_1. Then I sat back and drank cold coffee until the sun came up. Asterisk. The following week was a routine of fake smiles and silent preparations. Every morning, Rachel left early, perfume trailing like fog behind a moving car. Every evening, I greeted her politely, cooked dinner, asked nothing. She must have felt the shift people always do when silence stops being passive. One night she said, "You're so calm, it's scary." I said, "That's the point." I spent my days gathering every thread. Tax forms, bank transfers, zoning minutes. Greg met me at a diner off Military Highway. He dropped a folder on the table. Inside were emails between the redevelopment board and a private developer named Denton Properties. Mark was listed as the liaison. The language was clear. Secure signatures before public disclosure. They were planning to transfer 27 homes, including mine, before the next council vote. Why yours? Greg asked. I shrugged. Because I fix things quietly. People like that make great targets. He nodded. Until they don't. The public hearing was held in late March. City Hall. 6 p.m. Rows of tired residents holding manila folders with their addresses written in pen. I sat in the 3rd row. Middle seat. Rachel didn't show up. Mark stood at the podium. Sleeves rolled up, selling progress like a preacher. Together, he said, we can turn this community into something better. When he asked for questions, I raised my hand. Ethan Cole, 115, Ashbury Lane. My voice carried steady, flat, practiced. I'd like to enter into record that I never signed any document related to this redevelopment. Murmurs. Cameras turned. Mark blinked, smiled nervously. I'm sure this is a misunderstanding. Mr. Cole, I interrupted, calmly. I also have video evidence showing you entering my home without consent to deliver falsified paperwork and to notarize documents bearing my forged signature, both filed under your company's name. The room went silent. I handed the clerk a sealed envelope. Inside, copies of every form times the USB. Hannah's text came through my pocket at that exact moment. Send everything to the council secretary, not the chair. The chair's connected. I did it mid-meeting. 15 minutes later, the session was adjourned for further review. By morning, Greg's article hit the front page. Voluntary. Except it wasn't. You'd think that would be the end. It wasn't. It was the beginning of unraveling. Rachel came home that night pale and shaking. She didn't yell. She didn't deny it. She just said, "You weren't supposed to humiliate him like that." I said, "You humiliate yourself when you forge someone's name." She sat down, silent, then whispered, "He said it was for us." I replied, "There's no us in theft." She started crying. I didn't move. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. 2 days later, she moved out, took half her clothes, none of her photos. Greg's second article connected Mark to 3 other redevelopment scams. The FBI opened an inquiry into public fraud and falsification of federal grant records. Mark resigned from his boards and disappeared from public view. Rachel gave a written statement admitting she'd been misled. I didn't pursue charges against her. She was guilty of cowardice, not corruption. Weeks later, I sat with Hannah at her law office. The divorce settlement was finalized. I kept the house, the truck, and what piece remained. She looked at me and said, "You know, you could sue." I shook my head. No need, I already won. Winning isn't always about money or revenge. Sometimes it's just getting to keep what's yours, your name, your silence, your peace. The investigation grew beyond me. Turns out the district's entire redevelopment scheme was rotten. Fake signatures, insider land grabs, stolen grants. 11 people were indicted, Mark among them. When Greg called to tell me, he said, "You're kind of a hero around here." I said, "Don't tell anyone. I prefer quiet neighborhoods." He laughed. I didn't. Months passed. Seasons changed. I learned that peace doesn't come from silence alone, it comes from earning it. The house feels different now. Not empty, just honest. Every nail, every board, every scratch on the garage wall mine again. Sometimes I sit outside under the oak tree with a cup of coffee. The morning fog hangs low over the river. In the distance I can hear the horns of ships heading out to sea. People still ask, "What do you do now, Ethan?" I tell them I fix things that shouldn't have been broken. They smile politely, not understanding. That's fine. Last week I got a text from an unknown number. "Rachel, I heard about the case. I hope you're okay." I stared at it for a minute. Then I wrote back 3 words. "I'm finally quiet." And that was it. No hate, no forgiveness speech. Just the kind of ending you only get after surviving the blast. In EOD, we say there's no such thing as a perfect disarm, only one that doesn't kill you. Marriage, love, truth, they're the same. You do your best. You cut the right wire. And if you're lucky, the world keeps humming. I didn't win Rachel back. I didn't rebuild the marriage. But I kept the one thing no one could forge. My peace. And peace, I've learned, is just another word for control. The control to breathe, to wait, and to walk away without leaving a crater behind. I'm Ethan Cole. 20 years I learned how to stop bombs from exploding. Now I spend my days making sure the truth doesn't either. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers. And when it does, you have to be silent enough to hear it.